All right, so now what we're going to do is perform a serial dilution. I'm going to show you overall what to do. In this lab, you're going to perform two different series of dilutions. You're going to need your pipette again. You're going to need water. You're going to need some kind of food coloring. So a lot of times food coloring comes in these little containers, which you can use, okay? But it might be a little bit easier if you have a larger container, and I'll show you why. If you use these little ones, you're going to have to squeeze out some of the dye into another container in order to get the sample for the first tube that you're going to pipette into. You won't be doing it drop-wise. You'll have to add a specific volume, and you won't really be able to do that directly with this little dropper. All right, so if you have a larger one that can use the pipette, that would be even better. So what are we going to do? You're going to create a series of dilution that looks kind of like this. You're going to take a photograph of it and show me. When you get to that point, you can kind of see this here. If I slide a piece of paper behind this, you'll notice that you can see it quite a bit better. So that's what I'm going to want you to do before you take your photograph. Is if you make a box like this and the background is dark, make sure you put a light background behind it before you take your photograph. That way we'll be able to see the differences between the different dilutions. All right, so this is kind of what we're going to strive for. You're going to have your little test tube rack that you built. You're going to have your test tubes. And now we're going to do some water, right? So you're going to perform serial dilutions, and I have an explanation of how to do a sketch. So you need to be able to draw out the dilution, and as part of the homework, you're going to be doing a number of sketches that are labeled with a variety of different volumes and a number of different end results, for the different dilution series that you're performing. But the idea is you have some very concentrated solution, and you may need just to dilute it once, and you may do that directly, or you may dilute it in a series of steps. Sometimes you only want the end result, and sometimes you want every individual sample along the way because you're testing them for their effectiveness in some type of other experiment. How do we do this? So we're going to do a series of 1 to 10 dilutions. So we're going to end up with a total of 10 milliliters. We're going to in each step, we're going to add 1 milliliter to 9 to make 10. And then we're going to repeat that. Then we're going to take 1 milliliter from something and add it to another container with 9, and going on and on and on. So in each of your tubes, you're going to start off by putting 9 milliliters. So they are graduated. So I'm going to come over here and show you. All right, you can see the markings. So you're going to fill it up to the 9. All right. And that's what I'm going to do in these tubes. So I'm going to quickly, you don't have to watch me do this whole thing. I'm going to just pour water into there and go up to the 9 mark and stop. If you overfill, you'll need to dump it back out, or I'll show you how it'll be even better. You're going to, instead of just dumping it out, this will be good. So fill it as close to the 9 as possible. If you go over the 9, that's okay. I'm gonna do 2 more here. Here we go. And there. Okay, so this one I went way over on this end one. Now, I could pull this out of the test tube rack and dump it back out, or I could just take my pipette, right, or one of the other pipettes. I'd take your pipette, put it in here. I'm trying to show so you can see, and I'm gonna just draw this down so I see the meniscus hit the 9 mark, and that's it. And I'm going to check all my other tubes to make sure that they're exactly at 9. This one's over. Any of them that are a little bit over, it's better to do a little bit over, and this one actually needs a tiny bit more, so I'm going to add it with the pipette to get it up to 9. So use your pipettes to get them exact, so that everyone is exactly 9 milliliters. Now what we're going to do, normally this would be facing me, but I'm going to let it face you just so you can kind of see what I'm doing a little bit better. Now you're going to need your pipette that's been calibrated to 1 milliliter. You have the 1 milliliter marking on it, and you're going to need your food coloring. So food coloring isn't harmful. You can eat it in cookies and icing and things like that, but it will stain your fingers, so just be cautious. It'll stain your clothing and your work area, so be careful as you do this. I'm going to draw up from this container a solution until I get to the 1 ml mark. I know it's 1 ml because you calibrated the pipette. You just did a whole experiment on measuring that out. So I'm going to squeeze that in, but one of the problems is going to be that there's still going to be a lot left in your pipette. So now what you're going to do is both mix the solution in the tube and kind of clean out the pipette by filling it and releasing it. So we'll do this about 5 times. And now at this point, it still looks like there's a lot of coloring here in the pipette, but the water and coloring left in the pipette is the exact same concentration as what's in here. So it's not necessarily contaminated. If you only did it once, the dye in here would be highly concentrated. And so if you just went from here directly to the next one, you would be adding additional concentration of the dye to the next one. So this is a 1 to 10 dilution. I added 1 milliliter to 9. 1 plus 9 is 10. Right? So I added 1 is how much I added. 10 is the total volume, and so it's a 1 to 10 dilution. Now I'm going to perform a series of 1 to 10 dilutions. So I'm going to go from this tube here and take 1 milliliter and put it into the second tube. So that's what I'm going to do here. Squeeze this out, draw up to the 1 ml mark. Go to the second tube, push it in. You can see it's not perfectly mixed, maybe, so that's, again, why we're going to do this. Do this about 5 times. Again, you don't have to worry about clearing this out completely because we're going to continue. So now I'm going to just go, again, now from, this is now a 1 to 100 dilution. So 10 times 10 is 100. So I took from here, that's my original concentrated, what we call the stock solution, into the first tube, 1 into 9. So that's 10 times more dilute than this, or the original stock solution is 10 times more concentrated than what we have in here. This is 100 times less than what we have in the original, and we're going to continue this along the way. You're going to really start to see the difference now. And what I'm going to do for you is what I'm asking you to do at home is put that little bit of white paper behind your tubes for when you photograph them and show them to me, because I need to see what you actually did. And you're just going to keep going. So I'm going to do this again. Make sure there's no air bubbles in here. Okay, so when you do this, if you get an air bubble, just push the water back out. And at this point, you're going to see that 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, okay, dilution. And now it's barely noticeable. There is a slight greenish tint. I don't know if it's picking up on the camera or with the lighting. It's there. It'd be measurable, but it's very slight. And this last one, we're probably not going to see very much. So again, still rinse it. Do your mixing. Okay. And then you'll want to rinse this with just pure water a few times, just to make sure that the next time you do an experiment, you don't accidentally add some green dye into it accidentally. And so what you'll do is you'll have your dilution series with your 6 tubes. You'll take a photograph of this, and that'll be for your 1 to 10 series. Now I'm going to ask you to do a 1 to 2 series in addition to this. So you're going to do this again. So you have to take these tubes, dump them out, rinse them, and then start over and do this a second time. The second time you're going to do, like I said, 1 to 2 dilutions. You could put 1 milliliter in each of these of water, and then go 1 milliliter of dye to 1, and then 1 to 1, 1 to 1, 1 to 1, like that. But that's not what you're going to do. All right. I'm going to put online the basic layout for this, But you're going to do this 1 to 10 just the same as you did here. And so technically you can just keep this one and not dump it out and just dump out the rest. Okay. And then you're going to go from this tube to this tube, but it's not going to be 1 to 10. It's going to be a 1 to 2, like I just said. If we just use 1 milliliter to 1 milliliter, that would work and that would be the right concentration, but we'd have a small volume. And if we need to work with these tubes in a future lab, we might need more volume to work with. So what we're going to do is up that volume to 3 milliliters. So you're going to have 3 milliliters in this tube of water, and then you're going to add 3 milliliters from the original to the second one. And then you can repeat it with 3 plus 3, 3 plus 3, 3 plus 3, 3 plus 3. So that would be 3 plus 3 is 6. So 3 over 6 is the same as 1 over 2. So you're performing a 1 to 2 dilution. And you could do this with any volume combination. You could go 5 to 5, 5 to 5, 5 to 5. So it doesn't really matter. What matters is that the end volume, how much do I end up with in the tube after I remove some and put it into the next tube? Is that enough to actually use for whatever it is you're going to do? If you're going to put it into a spectrophotometer and it has to fit into a cuvette, how much do you need to put in that cuvette? 1 milliliter may not be enough for a standard cuvette. So you need to up the volume, and that's why you're going to do this. So you're going to repeat this as a series of 1 to 2 dilutions following the directions I provide in the lab online, and then you're going to take a second picture. So what you're going to turn in is a worksheet with all of your drawings of a variety of different series, dilution series, and you're also going to turn in 2 photographs, one of this 1 to 10 dilution series, and then a second one of a 1 to 2 dilution series. And that'll be it for this lab.